Okay, so I would like to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded, and we ask that you please rename your Zoom name to your full name and the organization that you're with. And if you are a resident, you can just put the letter R. And so for roll call, I'm just going to go down the list as it appears on my screen. And when I call on your name, if you can please unmute and say which organization you're with. And then at the end, I will introduce port staff that are on the call. So first up, we have B. Shanka.
Yep, good afternoon, Brent Shaka from SATCO.
Welcome, thank you.
Hey, Brent, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you. Then we have Mary Elizabeth.
Mary Elizabeth, resident, Delta Sierra Group of the Sierra Club.
Thank you, Mary. Welcome.
Thank you.
Next, we have Margot.
Hi, Margot Prouse, a resident on the AB 617 steering committee and Delta Sierra Group.
Thank you, Margot. Then we have RT.
Hi, Artie Valencia here with Restore the Delta.
Welcome. Next, we have Chuck DeYoung.
Chuck DeYoung with H.J. Baker.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. And then we have Gloria.
Gloria Alonso here with Little Manila Rising.
Thank you, Gloria. Welcome. And then we have Jasmine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jasmine Leak. I use she, her pronouns, also with Little Manila Rising.
Thank you, Jasmine. Then we have Kara.
Hi, I'm Kara Dewhurst with Anchor QEA, and Anchor assists the port with environmental and regulatory compliance.
Thank you. Welcome. Then we have Randy.
Randy Agasquito with Central California Traction Company here at Port.
Thank you, Randy. Welcome. Then we have Renee.
Renee Moylanen, Starcrest Consulting, assisting the Port of Stockton with the Clean Air Plan.
Welcome. And then we have Tanisha.
Julia, she sent a chat. Her audio wasn't working.
Okay, so it's Tanisha Raj, and she is with Catholic Charities. Welcome, Tanisha. And then we have Taylor Williams.
Hey, everybody. Taylor Williams, Edge Collaborative.
Welcome. And then Willie.
Hi, Willie, resident.
Thanks, Willie. Welcome. And then from the Port of Stockton, we have Commissioner David Atwater, Port Director Kirk. Hi. And then welcome. And then Port Director Kirk De Jesus, Jeff Wingfield, Deputy Port Director of Regulatory and Public Affairs. And then we have Rhonda Nelson, Director of Real Estate and Port Development, and Victoria Lucero, Public Affairs Coordinator, and Karen Romero from our Environmental Department, and then myself. And so with that, I will turn it back on over to you, Jeff.
Great, thank you, appreciate it. And thanks everybody for being here. Just wanted to do a few port updates. We have been busy installing additional chargers at the port. This is for cargo handling equipment. So we've installed an additional 6 units that we received through a grant program where the port pays for 50% of the cost. So we did successfully get through that program, and we were able to acquire the chargers, and they've been installed now and are being utilized. So that's great. We've got another 12 that we're working on. It's been a little more challenging. That is through the CEC Energize program. And one of the delays has been some issues with PG&E and just their timetable. So I'll keep you updated on that, but we're excited to get additional 12 units and hopefully have fast charging capability on the East Complex as well. Right now, we just have fast charging capability on the West Complex. We do have some level 2s on the East, but we're starting to see, as we utilize this equipment more and more, that the fast chargers is what's going to be helping us keep the keep the equipment working and charging much quicker. And the only reason we went with level 2s in the first place was just with budget constraints. When we were going through the ZANZEF program, we had to cut back on the number of fast chargers we got. We've had there's a reducing truck emissions program out right now. It's a grant program. We've been meeting with tenants and we've put that opportunity out to our tenants to see if anybody would like to partner with us. We've had a couple reach out, and we're following up on kind of if we have a project that we can put together. 2022 emission inventory is in progress. Karen, do you have a update on timing when we think that will be completed, or we'll see a draft?
Sure. We're actually in the process of finalizing the document as we speak, and we have a meeting scheduled with he's called a CAM, he's our representative from the CEC. That's scheduled for late July, and so hopefully we'll be able to release the document at that time after our meeting with him is finished.
Okay, great, appreciate it. We'll have our clean air plan posted to our website soon. The jobs board is going really well. We've got a lot of interest in that from our port tenant side, and we're posting port jobs up there as well. What I would ask from this group is to push out, and you can scan the QR code. I think you can scan the code that's on the screen right now. Is that right, Julia? Let's try.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, you can.
Yeah, it works. So if you guys know of anybody who's looking for work, can pass this information around. It's a great tool for our tenants to find local talent. And I don't know, we still need to follow up with some of our tenants to see if we've had a successful job placement, but we have had a lot of interest. And also for the tenants that maybe this isn't on the front of your mind, if you have job opportunities, feel free to reach out to our staff that's on this call, and we will help you kind of walk you through the program to get your jobs on the jobs board as well. We are holding informational Zoom meetings for tenants on the first Wednesday of every month at 1:30 for anybody who's interested. So even better. So you can email Julia at julm@stocktonport.com. Just last week, we held a great tour for some middle school students from Fresno State Summer Camp. They're in the transportation program, so they came up for the day. We gave them a tour. They were really engaged. That's a picture of them there on the bottom. And just had really cool, they were very interested in the port and how things were working. A lot of them are kind of thinking about going into engineering. And we had a few people say, this is what I want to do. They wanted to come and be a part of the success of the port. So that was really inspiring, and just they were so engaging. I've never had a school class that's been that engaging and asked so many questions. So that was really, really an awesome time. Tomorrow, we'll be giving an OWL/port presentation to the Native American Indian Center at Edison High. We're excited for that. We're kind of walk them through our OWL program, as well as kind of talk to them about the importance of ports and what we're doing here in Stockton. And we're scheduling a Delta waterway cleanup late July, so just in time for that heat wave. But we are looking for a location right now. If you have any, Margot or anybody else, feel free to reach out. We may be back over on Roberts Island again, but we'll keep you updated and are interested to hear if you have any other ideas. And then I don't know if I wanted to make sure this group was getting our quarterly newsletter. There's a lot of information there. It's just another way we're trying to be transparent and try to share information that's timely, as well as this, but it kind of takes on a slightly different slant. There's information from each of the port leadership. We kind of give everybody a different opportunity each quarter to talk about what's happening in their sector, whether it's our maritime operations side, whether it's our real estate side with Rhonda, the environmental side, we take turns. So if you aren't getting it, you can click on in the chat. There's a link that you can utilize to sign up and make sure you're getting that as well. Just based on all of the holidays or all of the vacations and everything, we are going to be canceling July's meeting, but we are going to pick back up in August. So we hope you enjoy your summer, and we will see you back here in August. And then one other thing, any residents or others that want to come out for a port tour, we welcome. We have an open invitation to this group. If you know of anybody else that wants to learn more about the port and see kind of firsthand what we're doing, we would love to have you come out and visit with us. And with that, I'm going to introduce Renee. Renee Moylanen has been working with us on the Clean Air Plan since the beginning. I think you're all pretty well familiar with her. She has kind of walked us through the development of the plan, kind of our meetings with all of our tenants and stakeholders. And we want to kind of give a final update on the progress of the plan. And so I'll turn it over to Renee.
Great, thank you, Jeff. So thanks again for having me at these meetings. I was not planning to spend a ton of time on the presentation because hopefully by now the Clean Air Plan is pretty familiar to everybody on this group since you've been so involved in helping to develop it. But maybe we could spend a little bit more time on questions, comments, and sort of next steps in the process. But let me go ahead and provide a little bit of background for those who are not super familiar with the Clean Air Plan. Let's see if my mouse will work. Okay. So the Port of Stockton Clean Air Plan is identifying strategies to reduce air pollution, greenhouse gases, negative public health, and community impacts. It was developed through a really collaborative process, and I have to say I've done a number of these types of plans with other seaports, and it may have been the most collaborative effort that I've seen, really involving the community groups, the industry, regulatory agencies, everyone coming together to help shape these strategies. And we've been doing this for about a year now, so lots of time and effort has gone into it. And one of the things that you'll notice when you see the final plan, which I know most of you provided some comments on the draft plan, is that these strategies are really trying to leverage the port's existing investments in zero emission technology, since the Port of Stockton really is a leader in zero emissions good movement, and also a leader in community mitigation. So you'll see that we're really trying to leverage what's already being done, in addition to being a little bit more ambitious. These are the objectives of the Clean Air Plan, which were developed in collaboration with many of the groups on this call. So I'm not going to read through them all. They are in the plan. They haven't changed since the very beginning. But these are the objectives that we sort of referred to when we were looking at which strategies to select. The strategies that we have in the Clean Air Plan are addressing these 5 source categories, which are port related: heavy duty trucks, cargo handling equipment, harbor craft, ships, and locomotives. And then we've also got some strategies for addressing the port's own fleet of vehicles and for mitigating some community impacts. Even if those strategies don't directly reduce air emissions or greenhouse gases, we wanted to make sure we included that in the plan as well. So I'm going to go into the strategies that were identified for each of the source categories. I am not planning to go into a lot of detail about the strategies, but happy to answer any questions. And these should all look very familiar to you. So for heavy duty trucks, which we know are a big concern for the community, we have strategies to encourage routing trucks away from the community to reduce fugitive dust emissions, reduce idling, and enhancing efficiency, which in turn would reduce emissions. And then we've also got strategies to pursue grants for zero emission trucks. We have a number of strategies. This won't be the first time you'll see this one, referencing the Port of Stockton electric vehicle blueprint, which is a much more robust plan focused on zero emissions specifically, and identifying the infrastructure that's going to be necessary, the technologies, the financing to make the port transition to zero emissions. So finishing that blueprint is going to be important for helping to define the pathway for zero emission trucks. And then we've also got a strategy to work with the tenants on developing zero emission truck transition plans so they can make sure to have the infrastructure in place to support zero emission trucks and potentially accelerate the transition to zero emission trucks. So those are our strategies for heavy duty trucks. Moving on to cargo handling equipment. So as I mentioned, the port has already deployed quite a bit of zero emission terminal equipment. This is really about expanding on those efforts and accelerating where possible and getting some additional technologies where zero emissions models do not exist today. So we've got, again, this strategy referencing the blueprint to identify the actions needed to get to a zero emissions fleet. Looking for grants for zero emission equipment, not only for the port's equipment that it owns, but also helping terminal operators secure grants for equipment that they may have. And then one of the things that we've identified is that there could be some need for technology advancement funds, particularly for like a zero emission bulldozer or loader, which is used at some of the terminals, but there aren't zero emission options today. So that might be something to think about pursuing. And then again, working with the tenants to make sure that they're planning for the zero emission transition by developing terminal transition plans. We've also got strategies to formalize the port's commitment to moving its fleet for zero emissions so that by 2030 or in advance of a state regulation, whichever is earlier, if it's feasible to get the port-owned terminal equipment to zero emissions, and that beginning in 2025, all new equipment purchases will be zero emissions if feasible. And we've got some language in the plan about what feasibility means. For the tenant-owned equipment, the port has set a goal of zero emissions by 2035 or in advance of the state regulation if it's feasible. And then also a strategy to evaluate the use of renewable diesel in cargo handling equipment, which is increasingly a very common strategy. Renewable diesel is called a drop-in fuel, so you don't need any changes to the equipment itself, and it generates greenhouse gas reductions. So that's another strategy for cargo handling equipment. I also cannot see any hands or comments, so if anybody's raising their hand or comment, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll keep forging ahead.
I don't see anybody yet.
Okay. So for Harborcraft, which basically the tugboats that are serving the ships, again, seeking grant funds for cleaner tugs, making sure that all Harborcraft operators have access to shore power so they can plug in their tugs while at berth to eliminate idling emissions, establishing slow speed zones near homes and community to reduce noise and emissions, and looking at ways to phase out the oldest Harborcraft engines that are operating at the port. For ships, we've got two strategies. Ships are tough to control. We had a lot of discussion about that when we were developing this plan, but conducting some technology demonstrations for at-berth emission control systems for the vessels that are calling at the port, and evaluating and developing an incentive program to encourage the deployment of the cleanest ships to Stockton. Oops, let me go back. For rail, again, another tough source category, but again, looking at grants for zero emission locomotives, and then working with the local switcher fleet to see if there's a way, potentially by negotiating with them through their contract, to have them deploy cleaner locomotives in advance of the state locomotive regulation. So this fleet vehicles section is talking about the port's own fleet of not terminal equipment, but sort of the support vehicles. And we've adopted a goal of transitioning the port's fleet of on-road vehicles to zero emissions by 2035. And that beginning in 2024, all new vehicle purchases will be zero emissions if feasible. And then looking at by 2030 and by 2035, first the light and medium duty fleet vehicles transitioning to zero emissions, and then the heavier equipment, so that by 2035, the entire fleet is zero emissions. That's the goal. And then also, again, the electric vehicle blueprint is a good way to chart out the path for making that happen. And then on community mitigation, so these are strategies that don't directly reduce air emissions or greenhouse gases, but help mitigate some of the port-related impacts on the community. So we've got a strategy to evaluate new locations for vegetative barriers and to work with the community on deploying those barriers, and then expanding the port's urban greening program with more tree plantings. So, so Jeff had mentioned that the final plan will be posted on the website. Next steps, I believe, is Harbor Commission approval. Jeff, are you taking this to the board, or have you already?
I have not yet. No,
Okay.
I was gonna have, I wanted to, we still needed to have some discussions and get the feedback here, and then that's the
Okay.
plan.
Okay. So at some point there will be the formal blessing of the plan from the upper leadership. And then it's implementation time. So there's a number of strategies that are in this document. There may be board approval required for new programs and policies. So each one of these strategies is going to need some more work to make it happen. And so I think this group will continue to be important in sort of shaping the priorities and shaping the actions, and helping to create some of these new programs and policies. And then, as Jeff mentioned, the port is going to continue to do emissions inventories. So that will give us a way to track progress going forward. And then, of course, continuing to communicate with community groups, residents, regulatory agencies, tenants, and industry partners through groups like this. I think that is my last slide. Oh, wait, no, the most important slide. Okay. So this is, I think we got everybody. All of the groups that were involved in developing this plan, and I mentioned this at the start, I will say it again, I think it's probably one of the best examples of a truly collaborative effort that I've seen of all of the ports that I've worked with on efforts like this. So really great work. And I think the resulting plan is very reflective of the community and the Port of Stockton and the good collaborative efforts that you have in place here. So this is really a thank you from the port to you. Jeff, on your behalf, saying thank you.
Okay.
For you.
Absolutely. No worries. No, we do. It was a lot. And so we do appreciate everybody's input and participation as we developed it. Just one other thing I would say, and I think I've said this multiple times, is that we are, just because we're in development of this plan doesn't mean we already are waiting for the plan to be finalized before we're moving ahead with these things. We have been kind of, I was just going through the presentation, and almost every single topic or emissions source, we are currently active and doing things, whether it be looking at road rerouting for the trucks, or trying to control emissions from the ships. We've got an active agreement, I believe, in place, Randy, for at least one of the locomotives to be replaced. We've got we're actively, we know that the Brusco tug is actively working to upgrade their fleet of tugs that are servicing the port. As you know, we've got over 40 pieces of zero emission cargo handling equipment that we're actively utilizing right now. What else was there? We got a zero emission rail car mover. Trying to think of anything else. Everything that we're doing really right now is not only about emission reduction, but about increased efficiency and moving goods in the most economically and environmentally friendly way that we can at the Port of Stockton.
Jeff, this is Margot. I had a question.
Sure.
So I really appreciate that you've built so much into the plan. I was wondering about, and I appreciate that you're looking at working with tenants on transitioning to clean fleet at, at some point, I'm sure. I wonder when you get new tenants, how you handle that and how are they held just to the same degree you would treat your current tenants, or do you have higher expectations when you're negotiating their arrival? I was at a scoping meeting yesterday evening or the day before, I can't remember now, for wood pellets. So they're looking at doing some bio, whatever,
Yes, yeah, the wood pellets essentially
driving,
for
coming
Yeah.
from Tuolumne and from Lassen counties. And it sounded like a very large project with lots of trucks, lots of rail, and lots of ships, with Stockton as the only potential port they're looking at this point in time. So it's really concerning because I know your ships can only be filled so far because of the it's not deep water, it's not deep water. And I just wonder how you approach negotiations with new tenants. And I know you can't tell us per se, but do you have a little bit higher expectations out of them?
We do have higher expectations out of new tenants, and kind of when we're in the lease negotiation and going through the CEQA process, that's kind of the time, and that's where you'll see us utilize and look to the clean air plan and the electric vehicle blueprint for guidance on kind of how we're moving things forward. So that was the intent of creating this plan, and why CARE is here as well, is to as we move through projects to really utilize the measures that are in the clean air plan and apply those to new tenant projects as well.
Thank you. It was a little concerning because it'll be a significant increase in traffic from what it sounds like.
Okay. Artie, you have your hands up?
Yeah, I just very quickly wanted to echo Margot's comments on that, because I think, beyond the ship traffic and congestion that it'll cause with that project, I think there will also be potential for increasing just truck diesel traffic within the forest, and that'll massively disrupt that ecosystem. But here at the port, if we were to have this project happen, I just think it would be very devastating in terms of like air pollution. It would also cause, for example, it would be a huge disturbance in terms of like possible fires that we could have, just because pellet storage facilities are often do catch on fire. It's a common occurrence. So why are we going to increase the fire risk here, right? So immediately when I read about that plan, that was something that I was concerned about.
Okay.
So I would love if those concerns could be addressed and considered when moving forward to the project.
Got it. Okay. No, I appreciate that. And Matt Holmes had reached out as well, talking about that project, and I circulated that internally. So we're gonna develop a response, and I can provide it to this group as well. Okay. Not too many questions about the clean air plan, but the GNSR.
It looks like there's a hand from Willie.
Willie.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I had some late night reading for the CAP plan, and I just had a few questions. One is, well, three questions. First question, I was curious if there was consideration into new taxes or fees to subsidize infrastructure, or if there was a thought to penalize non-compliance based on like a rubric that we decide for the cap.
New taxes or fees to subsidize infrastructure. So you're saying like an across the dock fee for cargo to,
Exactly, based on the equipment that they're using, whether it's the most updated or not. I would think that it would be like a way to incentivize people to incentivize tenants to update their equipment or use more efficient equipment. And
that's go ahead.
Well, that thought I also thought could be pretty useful if we built some kind of framework for that for the electrification plan. I know it's a lot, and I know it's very expensive, but if we were to frame or incentivize certain equipment, or certain fees based on the types of equipment that tenants are using, I think it could help subsidize a lot of the expenses for that electrification infrastructure. And then two other questions, but if Jeff, if you want to go ahead.
I would say we've had some initial discussions about it. It still needs a lot of work internally. We really don't want to penalize but or make things more expensive, but we have the other goal of reducing the emissions. So yes, I'll follow up with the team internally and I'll respond to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I understand the delicate plan. You have to manage your relationships with your tenants. So that's why I was thinking maybe not necessarily a fee, but maybe an additional incentive for people who do decide to evolve their equipment sooner. Second question.
So one thing, can I just add something on that? So I think, as I mentioned in the presentation, each of these strategies is going to need sort of its own implementation strategy. There's lots of different ways to implement. The incentives is one, fees is one, negotiations. So I do think that, when Jeff is talking about like, we sort of need to like huddle and internally figure out what is the best way to now implement these strategies. That's where ideas and suggestions like that are going to be on the table. And then the port is going to need to evaluate what's the most effective way to do that, understanding that as the objectives for this plan, as were laid out, was to also sort of balance some of those potential operational and economic impacts too. So
yeah, Renee, definitely hear you that the cap is more kind of higher level structural, whereas the actual execution will need more details on that.
Yep.
The other two questions I'll just combine here. The second question is, I was curious if and this may go to the whole implementation and execution part, but I was curious if we could build a cap criteria to evaluate tenants and service providers for the port. So building like a cap score for potential tenants to see how they perform on the score, so that we can decide whether we accept tenant A versus tenant B. So let's say, for example, tenant A has more volume, but tenant B has more renewable resources or electric vehicles and whatnot. Maybe we can build some kind of rubric or scoring criteria so that we add that as a part of a factor of which tenants we invite to the port or accept into the port. And the same thing for like contractors or service providers. If we were to have some kind of scoring system to say which service providers are using electric vehicles or electric trucks or have like charging infrastructure, that could be something that we use to evaluate future tenants and service providers to show that we're being very diligent in who we're inviting into the port. And then the last question is more of a technical question, but I noticed in the cap that barriers -1 is under long-term. That's the vegetative barriers. I was kind of surprised to see that under long-term. I could see that as something that could be done relatively quickly. So I was curious if we could potentially reassess if that could fit under the short term.
Yeah, I think certainly. I mean, it was like everything, we want everything to be near term.
Sure.
But I think, you know, the port is already pretty active in that space. And I'm sure as opportunities come up, near-term opportunities, that's something that should be looked at. And again, you know, this plan is meant to be dynamic and somewhat nimble. So, you know, those timeframes are not set in stone. You know, I would anticipate that there would be changes as opportunities come up.
Yeah, Willie, I would, yes, it can be easily moved into short term, near term. We've got, we've started even working on one of the vegetative barriers already. So we've got the location. We were going to try to tie it to a development, but that hasn't happened. And so that's something we may go ahead and move ahead with sooner. Gloria, did you get the agenda? Sorry. Gloria, the agenda.
No, I did not get the agenda.
Okay, hang on. We'll get it to you.
Thank you. And just side comment, will the Golden State proposed project, which actually held a scoping meeting yesterday, that's what Margot was talking about earlier, will that be included in this meeting right now? Will that be discussed?
No, we didn't plan to discuss that meeting here. We may have a separate public meeting on that. I need to find out exactly what that schedule is, and I wasn't even aware they were having a scoping meeting this past week.
Yes, follow-up comment to that. Just wanted to raise concern in terms of the timeline for this. It seems that the deadline for public comment submission is coming up really fast. I think it's the end of June. So we really have like 2 weeks to make sure that these public comments are recorded. Also, side comment, background knowledge for everyone. This project was supposed to conduct well, it is really bad for our community. That's one thing. Second thing, the scoping process did not incorporate Stockton, and they also recorded yesterday that the reason why they didn't incorporate it was because of efficiency circumstances. So we all know efficiency, it's not a thing that is of concern for frontline communities. So wanted to amplify the concern that this puts on everyone involved in fighting for environmental justice communities. I would appreciate a comment from how to proceed with participating in any other meeting that follows up with this.
Okay, we'll need to coordinate with GNSR, and we'll do that and follow up with this group. I wanted to go back really quick to Willie and wondered if there was if there's any examples of environmental criteria and scoring programs. Are you aware of anybody else who might be doing something like that that we could at least talk to initially to try to get some ideas?
So, I'm aware of, I don't know who that question was directed to.
Oh, sorry, it was directed to Willie.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
But no, that's okay. If you have ideas.
Well,
please don't.
So, I mean, I am aware of certainly ports that have awards programs for tenants and operators, and they have recognition programs. I also know that there are ports that if they're, for example, issuing a new a request for information or request for proposal for a new location, that the environmental requirements are sort of put out there as sort of a minimum criteria to get into the location. I think that's a little bit different than what Willie's talking about though, which is sort of a ranking, but I think if you were using a competitive process to lease a site, and I don't know exactly how you do that, but though the environmental criteria could be part of the evaluation criteria.
Yeah, that's pretty much aligned with what I was trying to allude at. I know some examples of some rubrics where they use that, especially for like new construction projects, where they kind of put that sustainability evaluation criteria. But I can get some examples and circle back.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay.
Just out of curiosity, Jeff, is there that kind of metric currently integrated into the Port of Stockton's kind of review of tenants, or anything closely similar to that?
Not a scoring criteria. I mean, we definitely look at you know, the number of trucks, and we've mostly evaluate a lot of those environmental impacts through the CEQA process. So, but it's not formalized in any manner, and we don't come up with a score for rating projects.
Got it. Understood.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything? Any other questions on the clean air plan?
I just would second making the vegetative barriers a quick short term. And, I put comments in there on the cottonseed project, so especially where you have some open stockpiles. Thank you.
Cottonseed, okay. Is Cottonseed, is that the one, I think that's a Penny Newman site.
No, it's over there. They're bringing in the hulls for various sundry items.
South of Washington. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm with you now. Okay.
Thank you, Willie.
Yeah, no, appreciate those comments.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, the other comment I have, Jeff, is not really a question here, but in reading the cap, I did notice that a lot of it is like really up to federal, state regulations and laws that are coming about to get more shifts, to get more trucks, to meet a EV goal. I mean, I understand there's not much in your control on that side, but I mean, just keeping us posted and keeping us updated on what the latest news is on those regulations will be super helpful.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. We can kind of potentially make that one of the regular pieces of this meeting. We're happy to do that. Typically, we have a lot of the regulators on that like to chime in and remind us of that, but we don't have anybody here today, I don't believe. It must be vacation time. Okay, yes, no worries, Willie.
It looks like Tanisha has her hand up.
Hi, Tanisha.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So I just have a general question that I've noticed, whenever the port has like a new project coming up, I'm sorry if I'm not aware of it, but I've only noticed that the outreach has been done to like CBOs, and I haven't seen like an actual workshop or anything held in the community. Do you think, is that a possibility for like projects moving forward, where there's an actual workshop and where community members can come in and learn about the projects, and they have enough time to do research about how the projects are going to affect them and their environment and everything?
Yeah, were you aware of the outreach meeting, the Sequas meeting, the public meeting we had for Biotech last week? Or was it the week before?
In person?
No, it wasn't in person, but that was one thing we kind of debriefed, and we may end up starting to do those meetings in person.
Yeah, so what I'm asking is if if workshops or something can be held in person for the community members to, come in, learn about the projects and, give them time to get familiar with everything that's involved and how they're going to be affected being frontline communities.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, we will we'll transition those scoping meetings, those and any public CEQA meetings to in person.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Artie?
Yeah, I generally just have a question about the comment period for the comment review period for the hydrogen project. Has that been extended? Only wondering just because our org, for example, has been doing a lot of the legislative work around harmful legislation and floods, and we've been at the Capitol, so trying to protect this region from these trailer bills that might impact the port operations as well. So we're wondering if that has been extended or not.
It is not yet. It has not been extended. I still am going to provide a formal response to both Mary Elizabeth and to Barbara. I just have been busy with another issue, but I will promise to get that out by Friday. Mary, is your hand still up, or is that new?
No, I never put it up. I just
Okay.
unmuted. Sorry. So
Okay, no worries.
I was finding it. So about that, the hydrogen production, because you went with a mitigated negative deck instead of a full DEIR, some of the state agencies are not able or to provide comments. So have you gotten any comments from a state agency on that?
I don't know. I don't know if we have or not.
So I just want you to be aware of that, because the state agencies, those are, and I always forget the term, but they are looking out for us all. Right? And so when you go with, or not you, but when anyone, tries to streamline and go with a mitigated negative deck, it doesn't get the same level of review. And I put an ask in to a state agency, if they were planning on it, and no, it hadn't even reached their radar. So I think, even when it's noticed on the Sequanet, it comes in like at a different level. And so for that reason, I think that there needs to be some additional time for some more technical collaboration on some of the issues that might need some additional outside expertise. Thank you for that consideration.
Thank you. Okay. Not seeing any other hands. Was there anything else that we wanted to touch base on before we adjourn? Okay. Thank you. Yes, go, Willie.
Sorry. What's the latest on the electrification plan? Is there a meeting for that? Is there a committee for that? Just kind of curious.
The electrification plant?
Yeah, I believe, right, there's like a EV, the blueprint. Am I getting that wrong? Am I saying that wrong?
Oh, The EV blueprint, yes, that's being finalized. That's being,
Okay.
yeah, it's gone through all the reviews. And Karen, do you want to give a little quick update on that?
Hi, yes, it's gone through all of the reviews and we're just finalizing it. And we meet with the with our CEC representative at the end of July. And then we'll hopefully be able to publish it after that meeting is done and over with. So I would look for more information from us sometime in August.
Okay, so there's no way we can see like a draft or anything to, I don't know, just read it.
Yeah, I don't see why we can't provide that.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's it.
Just know that there may be changes. It'll still be kind of draft, but you know, you guys have seen it previously, but we wouldn't anticipate any major changes.
Got it.
Mary?
Thank you. You know, I was thinking if for a future meeting, that might be good and also helpful if, you know, it's a meeting maybe with a larger, you know, invitations to, say, neighbors, to have an opportunity to go through how someone could check your regulatory compliance. So how would they access the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board reporting system? How can they, you know, look up and see inspection reports that were done by some regulatory agency? Or, and you know, I've always been, you know, asking for that fugitive dust monitoring, you know, and your water quality monitoring, and you know, to go through your whole regulatory scheme. I think that would be very helpful for our community to become more informed and knowledgeable about, you know, how to find information. Thank you.
Okay. All right, if I don't see anything else, so I appreciate everybody once again for being here, and look for a couple due outs from me before Friday. And then we will see you all again in August. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.